What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. This week we're back on our 1984 Mercedes with that big old small block LS3 shoved into this engine compartment. If you guys have been watching our channel, you know we're pulling things in and out of cars quite a bit, and it's not gonna stop on this build. First step we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be getting our late model Mercedes steering rack put in to this old Mercedes because the OEM steering components just didn't work out anymore. So first step, let's get this car in the air and let's get that done. All right, we got our subframe tabs and that pinch weld here cut off. Got it all cleaned up. We'll go ahead and take a template so we could transfer our template over to some 3/16 steel or something. Get a piece cut over on the plasma table or by hand, not sure yet. And we'll get that thing welded up on there, and then we'll start figuring out our mounting tabs.
Alright, we got our rack set up here, even side to side where we want it. So our next part is going to be making a bracket that attaches our connection point with the through bolt here to our reinforcement plate that's on our cross member. So we're gonna go design something up on the plasma, cut it out, bend it, weld it, and then once we have it bolted onto here, we could tack it onto our plate, remove the assembly, and then be able to final weld onto our cross member. Okay, so we got our two little points of connection here for our steering rack, and I did some initial welding on them just to hold everything in place. That's nice and toasty, so I want to mount the rack back in right now. And when the motor comes out, we'll finish welding all of our reinforcement plate to our cross member. But we are going to transition now to the transmission, and now we have a mount right here. So we're gonna have to figure out how we can adapt our stock cross member to our new transmission mount to our new transmission. All right, I tacked together my piece, my bracket, and I test fit it. As you can see, everything lines up. We got our two pieces of hardware here that catch our transmission, our two pieces here that catch our transmission mount, and then once I get this welded, I'll set it in, mark two holes here, and then be able to take down the whole transmission cross member, drill my holes, and be able to mount the mount into the cross member. And everything's working out really well so far, so I'm gonna go back, take this apart, go back to the bench, weld it up, and then put it in for final assembly. Also, as far as our angle, we still got our crank angle looking good for what we need, and we are nice and centered as well. So let's get this off, back to the bench, and then we'll come back and put it in for its final time. The transmission tail is mounted in place. We're gonna go ahead and throw on our low profile oil pan. So let's go ahead, drain this out, and then throw our new pan on. Okay, so now that we got the low clearance pan, we're gonna move on back to our fuel system. Just did a rough fitment here, just dropped our RCI tank into the back, and it fits very nice, plenty of room. It's less wide than the original tank. It has a little bit more depth out this way, but we could still put the factory panel back in its place. So now that we know that's gonna fit, I'm going to take it, bring it to the bench, and we're gonna start figure out our ascending unit. Okay, we got our RCI 19-gallon fuel tank on the bench. We also have our Aeromotive 11540 fuel pump kit. And then we have, this is also from RCI, it's an adapter kit to turn just a plain fill into a dual purpose fill and fuel pump with a supply and return hose here. So we're going to take the pump, get it mounted. This is universal, so it has multiple locations. So based upon the depth of the tank, we're gonna set this, be able to clamp our fuel pump to the side here and be able to plumb it up to our send right over there. And then we'll be able to put that whole assembly in using, this goes underneath, fits the same bolt pattern as the stock fill. And then if we want, we got a vent right here, and then we don't need to use these ports, we could just cap them. As far as the sending unit goes, they give you this unit right here, which is, I'm assuming, some sort of universal ohm range, and we can probably hook that up to whatever computer system we're using for our electronic dash. All right, now that we got our fuel pump in our tank, throw it back into the space where it goes, behind the trunk, and have it just mocked up in here. Two things: one, the original tank had a hard molded fill that sat through here, so now we have a straight shot down to our tank, but we're gonna have to weld a provision for filling it. So we're gonna get I think probably like 1.5 or 2 inch aluminum coupling, drill a hole in the side right here, weld that guy in, and then we'll be able to have a barb fitting with a hose to make our fill. Second is the mounting. Originally the tank was mounted with these flaps because the tank was much wider, came out edge to edge. We don't need to make large brackets to reach those. We could just make some L tabs off the bottom that then bolt into the floor. That way we could hold this tank from shifting while driving. I got this 90-degree 2-inch aluminum elbow, and I made a mark right here. If we line up that mark, make it perpendicular to the tank, you can see that it pitches up and will land right here. If we look through there, and we could just get a universal fuel fill with a cap to adapt into here. And then if we could cut this, weld it to the end of the tank, put a bead on here, and have a hose run between the two. All right, so now that we've finished mounting all of our major components, motor, steering rack, transmission, fuel tank in the back, we're gonna actually take all this stuff out so we could finish cleaning up the engine bay. Might get started some patches over unnecessary holes. We're gonna continue with that, smooth everything out. Also take off master cylinder and booster, because we're gonna begin brand new factory replacements for those as well. We'll pull the rack off first, and we'll get a transmission jack, get the transmission down, pull the engine, and then our bay will be clear to start working it out. Okay, so our next step is going to be getting some wheel fitment. In order to do that, we have our new spring and shock lowering assembly coming today. And also we got our big brake kit in these two boxes right over here. So in preparation for the springs coming, I'm gonna pull the wheel off, get the old shock and spring out of here, and then also start to put together our brake kit. That way, once we get all that in place, we can start taking measurements to see offset, sizing, and everything that we need for our wheel. All right, so we got our brakes unboxed, our giant 32mm rotor here, and our giant caliper. Some mounting hardware. These are the adapter brackets, and these are some new brake lines. I think what we're going to start with, making sure the fitment is correct. So that will start with our bracket, make sure our bracket lines up with our holes, that the hardware is the same thread pitch and size. And then after we deduce that our caliper mounting bracket's okay, we'll go ahead and take apart our hub out of our rotor. This is a bolt-in assembly. So you can see these Allen head bolts that surround. Gonna unbolt those, take the hub out, bolt it to the new rotor, and then we can test fit it on, and then test fit the caliper over. Okay, we got our rotor off in the rear, and there's a couple things going on. One is that there's this little alignment nub that the stock rotor has a provision to set into. Our new rotor does not. So we're going to have to shave that off of our hub assembly. And secondly, here's the bracket that the caliper comes with, and it slips back into here. But as you can see, a little piece of the dust shield on each side gets in the way of us aligning our holes with our threaded pieces here to mount the bracket. So we're gonna have to grind away a little bit of the heat shield. I think we could probably keep the rest of it, but we're not gonna be able to tell until this gets mounted up and the rotor gets fully on. So let's grind off the nub, grind the heat shield, and start building. So we got our caliper and our caliper bracket and rotor all fit up. This rotor sits flush with the face of the hub. I also added 2 more shims, just like the last one. This one's hard to see, but make the gaps between the pads and the rotor equal on each side. And then this is pushed up hard, flush against the hub face like it will be when it's bolted down with the wheel. Fitment is good. The e-brake assembly went on nice and tight to the inside, so we can reuse the stock cable parking brake if we want to. And everything is ready to go for some wheel fitment. All right, so we need to make this Mercedes a roller so we can move it around the shop. So I'm gonna go ahead and install our brand new springs. We got springs, I believe they're 1.5 inch drop from stock. We also got some brand new shocks, less important for now, but we'll put those in as well. So I'm gonna go ahead, take off my bolts holding my rear end. I got a screw jack, be able to bring it down, and then hopefully that'll give me enough room to get my springs in. I can use the weight of the car to push it back up, and get my bolts back in. Okay, so we got our brakes and our wheels back on the Mercedes, but look around the shop. It's gone, and that's because it's at the body shop, getting a bunch of body work. That way, when it gets back here, we can start fitting our custom body kit, and we can also start making a custom set of headers for the LS in that tight engine bay. So make sure you stay tuned because we got updates on the green machine. We got updates on the Lincoln. You can see some wrap samples over there. And of course, as everyone always asks, the Chevelle, we got a few updates on that. Make sure you like and subscribe so you can stay tuned with all of these builds. See you on the next one.